Okay. Are you all still with me? Beautiful. And has the location come up? No. Well, look, this is the Maple Leaf. It's a small piece of Canada in the heart of London. It's been there since 1986. Now, there's a difference between a Canadian pub and a pub run by Canadian people. Guys in here, a couple of them are Canadian. But in a way, I suppose you could call it a Canadian pub, but if you are from Canada, come here. Show me around. Show me Canadian London. As we walk on, I'll take a right. We normally take a left, but I'll take a right and that will explain exactly where we are. So Covent Garden, the postcode is WC2, West Central 2. When we take this right, we'll explain exactly where we are in relation to other bits of London. So, Southampton Street's home to a lot of the mountain biking, the camping and the hiking shops in the West End. Now, the building right in front of us is the Coal Hole. It's a pub and it's part of the Savoy Hotel. So you see where those trees are. If you went further down, about 100 yards from here, you'd reach the River Thames. And if you crossed the River Thames at this point, you'd have to be swimming. If you walked down to the Thames and took a left, you'd be at Waterloo Bridge. And if you took a right, you'd be in Westminster, the Houses of Parliament. So we are in the east section of the West End. You took a left all the way down the end there, you'd eventually end up in the City of London. Fleet Street, the Tower, London Bridge, and so on. But we're in Covent Garden, which some people say is the heart of the West End. But the busiest part of the West End is always Leicester Square and Piccadilly. Covent Garden is not as busy at night because there are quite a few theatres around here. And once they open at 7:30, it gets a little bit quieter. There are bars, there are restaurants, but there's no what they call vertical drinking. Not as many people are out and about at night. Again, one of these carts. Now, if we go back in time, let's go back to, as I always try to do, around 1599. The Globe Theatre opened, which is on the other side of the river. So this wasn't London in 1599. This was the city of Westminster, and the council, the local government, is still the city of Westminster. The city of London is around St. Paul's Cathedral. So it would be to the right of the screen where we're looking. 1599, the Globe was built only on the other side of the river because the Puritans were in charge of a lot of this side. The Puritans hated everything. So theatre, singing, dancing, sport, gambling, all the fun stuff. That all happened on the other side of the river. The South Bank was like the Las Vegas of Europe. And after London, the biggest cities in Europe were Naples and Venice. London only held about 150,000 people. This would have been markets, with some aristocracy thrown in, roads named after them, etc. And then what happened was in 1630, the Duke of Bedford decided to rent out the land to fruit and veg and flower sellers. And the area actually went a bit downhill. Now each horse leaves about 20 pounds of manure behind it on a daily basis. And there were about 20,000 horses in this area in the 16 to 1700s. On a daily basis, that's a lot of manure stroke fertilizer. All the rich decided to move a little bit further to the west. So from our screen, that will be all the way to the left to Piccadilly. This is St. Paul's Church. The front of this is actually at the back. This is the back of the church. The portico is fake. There's no actual entrance on this side. But they wanted it to face this side because this is Covent Garden Piazza. You know the show My Fair Lady? At the beginning of the show, Eliza Doolittle is selling lavender. Henry Higgins and Colonel Pickering have been to the opera, the Royal Opera House, just around the corner from here. And they take shelter from the rain, just here. And Eliza comes up and says, "Buy a flower off a poor girl." And Colonel Pickering says, in age-old fashion, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any money." You know, like we do today, "I've only got card." But now the guys have got card machines, so you can't really use that excuse anymore. Henry Higgins is in the corner. He's taking notes on the girl's accent. And he invites her in. And he has a little bet with Colonel Pickering that he can turn her into a lady of class and get away with it. It was made into a movie, of course. It was a musical, but made into a movie with Audrey Hepburn, Rex Harrison. And in the 80s, it was then remade into a brilliant John Landis film called Trading Places, with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. But this is the piazza, designed by Inigo Jones. So from 1630, this became a proper fruit, veg and flower market. But it became a bit crime-ridden. The pub in the front, right in the centre of the screen, is the Punch and Judy. Samuel Pepys, a diarist, P-E-P-Y-S, apparently saw a Punch and Judy show, which is an old English form of a puppet comedy, like Commedia dell'arte, but with little puppets. And he saw that here, allegedly, from that balcony, and they named the pub after the first ever Punch and Judy show. Samuel Pepys wrote diaries from about 1660 to 1669, and he gave us a lot of information about culture and theatre and music and just regular folks in London. There were many diarists who gave us the political goings on, but he gave us the day-to-day things. So he wrote a proper diary. I woke up, I went to Drury Lane, I had oysters for lunch. There's one, he went to a church in Putney, and he said the church was full of women, none of whom were pretty. So he was a bit of a fool as well, some of the things he said. He had to comment upon how they looked. We're going into one of the halls here. So hopefully we'll continually get the signal all the way through. There are security here, so don't be surprised if I get turfed out of here. It's a good drama if I do. You guys can watch it live. And there's basements in there, so that's where, when it was a fruit and veg market, people would store all of their goods because it was nice and cold. Now, I took a tour for a group of the old Covent Garden Traders Association. These were guys in their 70s and 80s, and I took them around Covent Garden years ago, all retired, and they said that they would store all of their stuff down here, and there would be rats running around the size of rugby balls. It was kind of a terrifying thought, but they had an amazing supply of food. So this is the South Hall. 1599, when the Globe Theatre opened, that was the golden age of theatre, and Shakespeare was alive. The Globe Theatre burnt down in 1613. Another one was built, and in 1644, the Puritans took over the country. They demolished all the theatres, including the second Globe Theatre, And for about 17 years in this country, theatre, singing, dancing, sport, gambling, animal fighting, even the celebration of Christmas was forbidden. This is where it all started up again. And it was because of Charles II, the Merry Monarch. He overthrew the Puritans, 1660, came back to power, and one of the first things he did was say he wanted theatre again. The guys out here at the wine bar, you see things are back to a regular normality here. It's nice to see. Such a mild day as well. So in 1660, he gave two men two royal patents, charters, licenses for two playhouses. One was built further in the east, which would be in front of the screen. He carried on about a mile. And that was called the Theatre Royal Lincoln's Inn, and that was opened by a man called William Davenant. And the other theatre was called the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, and that's the building right in the centre of the screen. Helen was asked, oh, Helen G. I called you Helen. That's just me being silly. Helen G, I would reckon it is. Yeah, there is a level above, but it's only on the outside, the external wall. So I'll turn this around, let's have a look at that now. So two theatres, royal licenses. Theatre had a bit of a bad reputation, and Charles II didn't want it continually being looked upon as a low form of entertainment, so he gave it royal patronage. Women were allowed on stage. These are the rickshaw drivers. They pick people up after the show, so they'll be busy about 10 o'clock tonight when a lot of the shows end. Just turn this around. This is the side of the Royal Opera House. As you can see, the colours of the lighting. It's not always like this, but in recent months, of course, it has been. And then up here, it's only around the outside of it. So in the centre of it, there's no level up. All the way around, they have restaurants, bars, some of the offices, the Traders Association. That's all up there. One of the things that happened during pandemic was when we were allowed to reopen areas. I'm sure it was the same all over the world. A lot of the restaurants decided, in case things happen again, or we had other lockdowns, which of course we did worldwide, they would rent from the local government, they would rent the outside space. Because outside drinking and eating was okay for a while. Right in front of us is the London Transport Museum. There are two. There's one in Acton, a bit further away from here in the west. Yes. But this is the one with the main design elements. It's quite a large building, but it doesn't have any train stock, any rolling stock here. In Acton, you can actually go and look at train carriages. And children are obsessed with tube lines. I know a little kid, he knows every single tube stop. You ask him where you should go, he knows everything. You can buy socks. These are the designs of the seats of the different train lines. It's quite sweet. Problem is, I suppose, if you end up commuting every day and you hate your commute on the tube to work, and you get somebody that, they'll never be able to forget it, really, will they? It's okay if you live in the country and you want to be reminded of your daily commute when you were younger. Jubilee Market is here. Jubilee Market is the only market in London that's completely owned by the traders. They'd close for the night as well. We're not like other countries. We do close up quite early with markets. In certain countries, they take a break in the afternoon, the hotter parts of the day. So all these guys have a share in the market, so they own their own little pitches, but they're not here. Not everyone is here every day. So on Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's antiques. On a Friday, we normally have a large record fair here. But they own the pitch, but they own it for those certain days. And I do love that they own the market. The other big famous market, apart from Covent Garden, is Borough Market, which is, of course, where William Shakespeare would have known. That's been there since the 1270s. Most of this original market was designed by an architect, Inigo Jones. In the 1630s, he had been in Italy. He wanted an Italian-style piazza look, and he managed to get it. Ah, nice people. There you go. Oh, that's nice. At least they didn't shout at me. I'll show you some pictures from the old traders. This is from 1970. A lot of the kids worked here in the markets during their school holidays. Look at this fella. That's a character. These are the Solomon brothers. This is again from 1970. These are two of the main owners of a lot of the stalls here. Quite famous guys. Bell bottoms, indeed. Flared trousers. Lady doing the accounts. There are some markets that still work like this. Billingsgate Fish Market still works like this. Hardly any of it's done on computer. This is my favourite one. This is a man called Louis Emmanuel, 1974. And he looks like something out of, I don't know, some kind of gangster film. Cigar. So, late 60s, early 70s, it all changed. Fruit and veg market moved a bit further away to the west to Vauxhall, and the flower market moved as well. And now it's retail, many different shops, many restaurants. And it's busy, it's heaving. But I'd love to have seen it back in the old days. Now, we were earlier right at the point, this fella, underneath St. Paul's Church. This is a busker, street musician underneath that portico. That's from 1974. It's so great that we don't forget. Market porter. There's a drink called porter. It's like a dark stout, and it was designed for these people, so that they could have a little drink after work and it didn't get them drunk. It was quite low alcoholic. There's a man fitting a gas lamp. There were some gas lamps that still work in London, around Westminster and Westminster Bridge. Now they're all electric here. And this is the apple market. That's where we're going into now. Don't sell apples here anymore. Strangely, there is an Apple store. Another one of my favourites here. I'm going to show some flower sellers here in 1970. That is the definition of the word character. I hope you don't mind me showing you these, but they are brilliant. These are two ladies that are off to Drury Lane, which we'll see in a moment. 1969, wearing their fur coats. There's a map of the market. You can definitely go online and have a little look, but there is a little map in front of us here, which I'll give us a look at. Whether it will make any sense. So this is the apple market here, which again is stalls during the day, not retail shops, but little market stalls, handmade arts design. But it used to be the old apple market. Let me show you the map. Now, that's not easy to get your head around. It's huge. So that was the lower courtyards we saw there. Guys eating and drinking down below. This is the level we're on. We're here. And then, as I mentioned before, the upper floor, which is the external area. And then the bits in the centre are the offices. Excellent. In 1663, the oldest theatre, the Theatre Royal Drury Lane, opened. We'll take a little walk back now. There's a man called Morris Jackson on the left, Frank Berg in the middle, Len Oves. Fruit and Veg Salesman, 1973, just before it all closed. You have a Covent Garden market there in London, Ontario. Oh, I want to come visit. So these guys are actually stood just outside Bedford Chambers. In the photograph, Bedford Chambers is this building. Bedford Chambers is now the flagship Apple store. When this Apple store opened, about 18 years ago now, any new phone or iPad or iPod, there'd be queues around the market. They'd be there at midnight queuing. Now they just have them delivered, don't they? So I miss the idea of seeing the queues. And all the way to the end there's a road called Longacre at the end, and Covent Garden tube station. And this building on the right-hand side is all part of the Royal Opera House. It's retail underneath. It's called the Royal Opera House Arcade. You can see a bit more clearly the lighting, the recessed lighting, the colours of the Ukrainian flag. It's pretty beautiful. And you don't notice it as much when you're walking through, but seeing it on a screen like this is something special. Now I'm going to take a little detour. Normally, just up here, the signal has dipped. But hopefully, we'll be all right today. It's been okay the last couple of times. Every now and then it dips. So if it dips in the next minute or two, Well, we'll be okay. Mark Wahlberg, Boston actor, he had a restaurant here just before the pandemic. He opened it. He opened it in late 2019, called Wahlburgers. But unfortunately, then the pandemic struck, and he couldn't keep it going. It's a shame. So as you can see, a couple of these ones here, nobody's taken them on. People are still a bit worried. People are saving, not spending. See right in the centre, Covent Garden Underground. Two very iconic Victorian pubs. It's the White Lion. You could do worse if you're in London than have a drink at one of these places. Ornate is not the word. Little nooks and crannies. They haven't banned vertical drinking here, but they have banned it in Leicester Square, so people don't stand outside as much in Leicester Square anymore. And then this pub here, one of my favourites, the Macmullen Breweries, the Nag's Head. So these guys own the pub, they own the land it's on, and they own a section of the outside area. And on a night like tonight, when it's about 21 degrees at the moment, bit of a breeze, it's nice to be able to stand outside. We're going to walk down Floral Street. Floral Street is named after the old flower market that was on this site. At the top of the screen, it's the Bridge of Aspiration. That's designed about 20 years ago. On the left-hand side, right at the top, are the offices and the studios of the Royal Ballet. And on the right, it's the Royal Opera House. That's why you have that bridge that crosses and gives that sense of movement. We're at the side, the back entrance of the Royal Opera House. So I mentioned Drury Lane, 1663. That same year, Lincoln's Inn opened. A bit further east. That second license, there were only 2 licenses. That second license, when Lincoln's Inn burnt down, went to a few other people, and they built not static theatres, they just held the license and they put on plays. I know, I've chosen a good time of the evening, haven't I? It's perfect timing. Just as all the lights are being turned on. And I think we'll take a little walk down towards Waterloo Bridge, because just as it's getting dark on the bridge, it's going to look phenomenal. But I better get my skates on. So eventually, the second license went to a man called John Rich, and he opened the Theatre Royal Covent Garden. So he had the Theatre Royal Drury Lane and the Theatre Royal Covent Garden, which is a bit weird. You'd think they'd be in the same place. And they were across the road from each other. I just want to show us this sculpture called The Young Dancer by Enzo Pazzotta. I talked with this about my girlfriend, and she said no. Okay, there are drunk people next to me, so I'm not going to spend too long here. Okay. Look at the 5 telephone boxes. The guy in the corner, yeah, he's not a statue. This is the guy having a little drink. This is the Bow Street Magistrates Court. You may have heard of the phrase the Bow Street Runners. In the 1740s, a man named Henry Fielding, who wrote the novel Tom Jones, got together 7 constables, 7 detectives to investigate crime. So it's the forerunner of the modern day police force. We're on a road called Bow Street. And they called them, instead of Fielding's people, everyone knew them as the Bow Street Runners. And this, behind the van, is the front of the Royal Opera House. So eventually, 1732, John Rich built the Theatre Royal Covent Garden, and it eventually became known as the Royal Opera House. There's the Royal Opera House, the Royal Ballet, the Royal Shakespeare Company, the Royal National Theatre. It's been on this site since 1732, but originally it was a theatre, the Theatre Royal Covent Garden. And that's the Floral Hall. Have I performed there? I'm not an opera singer. I can't do that. I just do straight drama and comedy, me. I don't do opera and I don't do ballet. I don't know, maybe one day. It's never too late, is it, to have a career in ballet? Yeah. Oh, I thought you were just joking. Somebody asked me the other day, I was in the West End at the Windmill Theatre, and it said live table dancing. And somebody on the chat said, have you performed there? And I thought, my goodness, people just making fun of me the whole time. Now, this was the site of the original Floral Hall, but this is not the original Floral Hall. This one was built about 12 years ago and paid for by a man called Paul Hamlin, the publisher, Hamlin's Books. Spent 10 million on this. The previous Floral Hall looks exactly like this, but it's smaller and it's actually in Borough Market. So when I'm next doing a Shakespeare walk, come on it and I'll show you the original. It looks exactly like that. And that's the hall, the lobby, quite a large foyer. They have tea dances and so on. Yeah, they do have the flag in as many places as possible. What can you do, huh? You've got to show that solidarity. It's a beautiful building. But that was a theatre. So you had the Theatre Royal Covent Garden, the Theatre Royal Drury Lane. They were the only places for about 90 years in London allowed to put on drama and comedy. They called it legitimate theatre. You could write a play and add music to it and call it an operetta. You could have opera. You could have music hall or vaudeville. But straight drama and comedy, there were only two places. That now Royal Opera House and the building we're coming up to, Drury Lane. Then eventually, they allowed the laws to be relaxed. The third license was given to the Theatre Royal Haymarket. And then licensing stopped. But people still, when they built theatres, they wanted to name them after royalty. So they were called the Duke of York's, the Prince of Wales, Her Majesty's, His Majesty's. It's another old Victorian pub. The Bow Street Tavern, a nice one. Slightly different looking than most. This is the Marquis of Anglesey. This was originally a coffee house in the 1700s, and then the owner decided, because there were 26 brothels in the area, that he was going to make more money selling something else rather than coffee. But now Young's Brewery, great Young's Brewery. My father worked there 37 years. Proud of that fact. They own this place. And here we go. Theatre Royal Drury Lane. The oldest operating theatre in the Western world. There has been a playhouse on this site since 1663. Holds just over 2,000. It's currently showing Frozen the musical, obviously an authentic Shakespearean show, but you need big musicals here. The original My Fair Lady, which did start off Broadway, then went on Broadway in '56, came here in 1958. ran for 6 years. But the longest running show, this history, is Miss Saigon, ran here for 10 years, 89 to 99. They landed a helicopter on the stage, all on hydraulics. The producers, with Lee Evans, Nathan Lane, that was on here. Some of the funniest things I've ever seen. Lord of the Rings, that did a couple of years here. A lot of people said it was a flop, but it did 2 years. The problem was it cost so much money to put on. They said it would have to sell out for 5 years just to break even. And on the left-hand side of it, the colonnade was originally on Regent Street. So all those pillars were on Regent Street until the late 1800s, and then they were moved here. We bought them, I say we, Drury Lane. Drury Lane has burnt down twice. It has been demolished once. In their basement, they have a tunnel that exists from the original. Now, if you can cast your minds back right to the beginning of the show, we were on Southampton Street. And I said this is where the hiking and camping and mountain biking shops were. There's a tunnel underneath here that goes all the way to the right, underneath all of these places. It was built in the 1600s, all the way through Covent Garden to Southampton Street, which is more or less in the centre of the screen now. Nell Gwynn, who was a notorious actress, orange seller, she did quite a few things. She was an actress and she had an affair with Charles II. And some people believe that the tunnel was commissioned by Charles II himself so he could visit her at the intervals. Very long intervals in those days. Intermissions, I should say. Now, because the light is so lovely, we'll walk down to the river. I don't want to keep everyone too long. I said 45 minutes. I don't know if anything's going on for the next 15 on beams, so I may not get in trouble. I'll show you the Coach and Horses as well, which is an Irish pub, or a pub run by Irish people. Some of my family are the owners of that, so I'll give them a plug. Always come to the Coach and Horses. It won Best Guinness in London the last 15 years. Henry Fielding, who started Fielding's People, the Bow Street Runners, said that this road, Bow Street, he said every second shop was either a gin palace or a brothel. Oh, thank you, Helen G. That's lovely. Any contributions? They'll keep the wolf from the door. So we're coming up. I said roads change in this strange city. We've just come off Bow Street. We're walking down exactly the same road, and it's become Wellington Street. So the idea of trying to explain exactly where you are in London is almost impossible. Sometimes wish London was like the grid system of Manhattan, where you would know exactly where you were if you could count. But with London, every single road is named after some bit of history. So Wellington Street, named after Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington. Great war hero. Exeter Street. The building here is the Lyceum Theatre. There was an actor-manager here in the 1800s named Henry Irving. And he had a business manager who worked on the top floor for 20 years, the same business manager. And that business manager wanted to be a writer. And he based the lead character in one of his books on Henry Irving. And he asked Henry Irving to play him. And Henry Irving said, no, the guy's too evil. The writer was Bram Stoker, the character was Dracula. And it was written at the top of that building. Oh, thank you, Helen G. Is anybody using those telephone boxes? No, for a while they were little internet hubs, charging hubs and so on, but no. They're iconic, they're listed, they're protected, but they're not being used, which is such a shame. Right in the centre of the screen is an old Victorian toilet made into a jazz bar called the Salador, which is directly underneath us. And that's their entrance, which was the entrance to an old toilet. See somebody coming up. So the man who designed the telephone boxes is a man named Giles Gilbert Scott. He designed a few things, the architect of a few very famous London landmarks. So every red telephone box, that's his design. Battersea Power Station, the Bankside Power Station, and if you don't know what that is, that's now the Tate Modern Art Gallery, and the bridge we're about to go on. But before we go on that bridge, just want to show you, this road is the Strand. And if you can see, I don't know how good your eyesight is, right in the centre of the screen, there's something sticking up at the end. That is Nelson's column in Trafalgar Square. The road Strand, in Germanic, it's the word for beach. So this was the riverbank. We gradually reclaimed the river. We built in on it, and we built 14 bridges which crossed central London. Back in the 1500s, there was only one London Bridge. And if you carried on the Strand, that's St. Mary Le Strand Church, the road turns into Fleet Street, and if you walk from here about 2 miles in this direction, you will end up at St. Paul's Cathedral. Now, how is that for giving you exactly where you are? I love it. I'm very proud of myself. Oh, the lights are stunning. Okay. So I know I might be keeping you, but we have to end on the bridge. It's just going to look beautiful. The building on the left is Somerset House. So again, the Duke of Exeter, the Duke of Sussex, the Duke of Northumberland. All of these buildings were aristocratic mansions. Somerset House is now an art gallery. It's an amazing filming location. It looks a bit like Covent Garden in the middle of it. We'll go in there next time. Sky looks great. It's not pitch black. As we come up, we should be able to see a beautifully lit London Eye and the Palace of Westminster, all the Houses of Parliament, Big Ben, etc. It's still busy. Buses are busy. People have had their 1 or 2 drinks after work. But it's been an uncommonly warm day. That's the National Theatre, the Royal National Theatre. So if we crossed over the bridge and got to the National Theatre and took a left from there and kept walking, we come to Blackfriars Bridge, the Millennium Footbridge, Southwark Bridge, and we'll be at Shakespeare's Globe. Just to give everyone the bearings. You may be able to see the building in the centre of the screen, a curved top to it. And it's called One Blackfriars. It's a new residential building. The Oxo Tower in front of that was called the Pioneer Power Station. just poking out in the centre of the screen. This is Waterloo Bridge we're on. You've got the Shard in the centre. So I said, Giles Gilbert Scott. What did he do? Battersea Power Station, the Bankside Power Station, the Tate Modern, red telephone boxes, and Waterloo Bridge. So he did a lot in London. This bridge is known by the cab drivers as the Ladies' Bridge. It opened in 1945, this particular version. There was a bridge here previous, but it was sinking into the ground. So in 1945 it opened. The workforce was mainly women at the end of the Second World War. The pink building is the National Theatre, the Royal National Theatre. Okay, look at this. St. Paul's, the walkie-talkie, the cheese grater, all of the buildings in the financial district of London. But I think it gets even better on this side. Buildings over Waterloo Station. The London Eye. Houses of Parliament. And the River Thames. Lovely, lovely evening. Okay. Let me just pop you back to me. Okay, good, good, we got there. That was nice. Lovely time of the evening. This is the best I'll ever look in this kind of light. I'm happy about that. Oh, thank you for any payments, any contributions. I really enjoyed it. I think we had great lights, a great company. I hope we got a sense of exactly where we are. And I hope you join me again. It's good. Let's just walk around, see everything. We'll have the National behind us in a second. Oh, beautiful. Okay, I'll just turn you around once more. We'll gradually walk down. We'll see the London Eye from a little bit from the side as I say goodbye. Do join me again. Please join me. Plenty more tours coming up. I've scheduled a few for May. There'll be plenty more in June. And let's see how far we can get down here. Let's actually see if we can see this thing as a circle. The British Airways London Eye. British Airways paid for this. And it was built flat on the river, and then raised up, raised like a barn. And the building there, again with Ukrainian colours, is the Royal Festival Hall. That opened in 1951. We had a festival called the Great Festival in Hyde Park in 1851. And then in 1951 on the South Bank, just over there, we had the Festival of Britain, celebrating modern British. And a lot of the buildings are actually brutalist, which is kind of a shame, but they're iconic in their own way. There we go. Okay. Getting a little bit wind. So the pink circle is the London Eye. It's actually round, but we have to get right behind it before we can see it round. Okay, folks, lots of love. Let's see what's in this direction before we go. The old Shell Mex building, the Shell building. The clock on that is called Big Benzene, because they were an oil company. You got Big Ben and Big Benzene. And that's actually a bigger clock face. Chat to you soon, folks. Lots of love. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're going to have some fun. Lots more fun. Take care.